So I think that communication is kind of a buzzword that people should really be thinking about in fixed ops now. And there are many, many ways to communicate with customers now. And you don't even have to do it yourself. Everybody's used to having things delivered to their house. So if they find out they can have their tires, replaced or their oil changed or whatever at their home, then they're going to love that, right? That's the kind of service people want now. Mobile is clearly the future. I mean, it's the future that's here. It's not even the future; it's the present, and it has to grow. People are going to expect it.
Welcome to Retention Roadmap, navigating service success for new car dealerships. I'm your host, Bill Springer. Today's podcast is sponsored by DriveSure. DriveSure helps new car dealerships remain the go-to provider for maintenance, tires, and repairs. For information on how DriveSure can help your dealership, go to drivesure.com/dealership solutions. My guest today is Alicia Webb, an automotive journalist and industry analyst who has spent years covering dealership operations, fixed operations, emerging technology, EVs, and the evolving customer experience. Alicia brings a unique perspective because she sees trends across the industry, not just from one dealership or one vendor viewpoint. Today, we're going to talk about what's quietly changing in fixed operations, where dealerships may be underestimating customer expectations, and what service leaders should be paying attention to as retention becomes more competitive and operationally complex. We'll also spend some time discussing Alicia's experience covering the Chinese automotive market and what U.S. dealers may be able to learn from the rapid evolution of customer expectations, technology, and convenience in China. So, Alicia, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, let's just, you've got such a broad, you write on such a broad expanse of things in the automotive market. Let's just jump in with kind of a broad question. As you talk to people across the industry, Alicia, what do you see that's maybe quietly changing in fixed operations right now that dealerships may not fully appreciate or may not be fully prepared for?
I think communicating with the customer. Mm-hmm. I was just reading over some notes in an interview I just did with Nate Chernenko from Dr. Carlisle about one of their recent studies, which I'm sure I'll throw some of those results into our conversation. But one thing he brought up is how effective videos are with in the service department. And I was reading something else this morning about how, yes, videos are effective, but one of the difficult things is getting the tech to hit send, right? Something really straightforward like that. But I think that customer communication is the biggest change in the fixed ops, because there are so many ways to communicate with the customer now, and you want to communicate with the customer the way they want to be communicated with.
Right.
So be that text. I mean, nobody really wants to get phone calls anymore, frankly. At least that's my personal experience.
Right.
Everyone likes to get texts. But on the other hand, videos are also extremely successful at getting people to not only accept the recommended service, but also accept additional services. So I think that communication is kind of a buzzword that people should really be thinking about in fixed ops now. And there are many, many ways to communicate with customers now. And you don't even have to do it yourself. I mean, we'll probably touch on AI, right? But that's another big thing that's moving into fixed ops is artificial intelligence, right?
Yep.
And it can do things at so many levels. But one thing it can do is, they're AI agents, agentic agents, which can do more complex tasks that can respond to customers 24/7, right?
Right. And the customer may not even realize they're not talking to a live person. Some of them are that good.
And so, I just think that communication is something that all fixed ops departments really need to think about, and they need to make it the way the customer wants to be communicated with. And interestingly, maybe I'm kind of jumping around, but AI isn't right for all dealerships. I did a webinar with Rosenfield & Co., a CPA firm I work with, last month, and And we talked with Jade Terraberry from Cox, and also Lonnie Souza from Fertitta, I believe it is, dealership group, and he mentioned how he's used it, and they have one volume brand dealership, and then the rest are really high end, super premium. I mean, we're talking Bugatti, those kinds of brands. And the super premium customers don't really want AI returning their phone call,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
a volume brand AI is probably your best friend,
Yep.
but for premium or super premium brands, maybe your customers want that personal touch, since they're
Right.
going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars
Right.
on a vehicle that
Yeah.
they buy from you.
Yeah, I think the video piece that you brought up, the video inspection piece, I think is, in my experience, an interesting example of what in my opinion, is really kind of a game changing technology. There's so much technology out there and it changes so quickly for dealerships to choose from that, number one, you have to figure out which ones are best for your particular dealership and your particular customer base. And then how do I deploy that in the right way? And I think that, everything that I see around video inspections, when they are deployed consistently and effectively by the dealership, it really does enhance trust, between the vehicle owner and the dealership, which is what you want. And the outgrowth
Right.
of that is that they're going to come back, they're going to listen to your recommendations, they're more likely to take advantage of those, knowing that you have their best interest at heart. And I just see that along with, I think, mobile service, which we'll talk about, is
Mhm.
one of those things that I think can be potential game changers for a lot of dealerships going forward.
Yes, there is the mobile service trend, which I didn't mention because I figured you were going to ask me about it. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
there's that too.
yeah. Well, let's talk about it, since we brought it up. Let's talk about it now. Mobile service is one of those things that is being adopted more and more dealerships, and you've done some recent reporting on it. What do you see in terms of mobile service, in terms of pros and cons, and what you see, successful dealers doing that maybe the not so successful dealers aren't doing?
You know, the interesting about mobile service is that I think the adoption rate, while increasing, is actually still quite low. But because we're in the industry, and if I'm writing about mobile service, I talk to dealers who have mobile service,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, well, doesn't everyone do mobile service?
No.
They don't. And I think that, okay, let's talk about why they should, right? I mean, convenience is everything now in
Yeah.
this in the dealership world. Everybody's used to having things delivered to their house. So if they find out they can have their tires, replaced, or their oil changed, or whatever, at their home, then they're going to love that, right? That's the kind of service people want now. So that's one reason that dealers should do it, right? Another reason, and it helps with retention, because then they're going to be like, oh, this is great. But it's also like a rolling advertisement. They're in your driveway, your neighbor's going to see it. They're going to be like, oh, you can get that done, there. So, there's that side of things. You can't really look at it as a profit center, at least not initially. And maybe that's why some dealers are reluctant to jump into it. But I mean, and you've got to make the upfront investment in vans, et cetera. But, you should look at it more as a marketing and customer retention
Right.
tool, right?
Right.
Than a profit center. So there's that. I mean, I think that interestingly, the OEMs seem to have started to recognize that this is a good thing. Obviously,
Yeah.
Ford really leaned into it
Hmm.
in a bigger way. And I was just reading something today about how they're expanding it. I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact details, right? But
Yeah.
then we just saw that Hyundai, right, is jumping in.
Yep.
And I guess that's something else that we didn't talk about. But another benefit to the dealership is that it clears up your bays for other kinds of work. And I think that's what Hyundai was seeing, right? That people couldn't get into the dealership to get your basic stuff done. So they're like, oh, maybe we should add mobile service. And I mean, 150 vans, their initial offering doesn't sound like a lot, um, but there. So I think the OEs probably need to get into it more. And as was it someone I talked to said they need to incentivize dealers to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's, always out there that OEMs out there who are incentivizing dealerships to do it. And from what I see, there's a lot of dealers who have dipped their toe in the water, but dipping
Right.
your toe in the water is not going to create a
No.
sustainable profit center over the long term, especially once those OEM subsidies go away, which they likely will at some point in the future. And it is a completely different model, a completely different business model, which takes some adaptation and flexibility to do. And if
And and we're going to talk about tech shortages, but let's just talk about techs right now. It's not the same person. You also need to have the right person to be in those mobile service vans, right?
Yep,
Because it's a different job than just
yeah,
being a service
it's
tech
customer
at the
facing, and you have to do
dealership.
the
It's
work as well.
customer facing. So it's kind of service advisor and service tech, right? Combined. So that is something that, given that there's already a tech shortage, that's something that dealers are going to have to grapple with. But and they may be thinking, oh, the upfront investment is too much. It's probably not as much as they think it
Doesn't
is.
have to be. No.
No, I mean, there's plenty of people out there, Kirby and those types who can help you set up the van, can provide a whole software system to help you run it,
Right.
that will can and so I think that maybe fear of the new might be, which is, I mean, look, dealers didn't want to go on the internet.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's that, but yeah, I think that mobile is clearly the future. I mean, it's the future that's here. It's not even the future; it's the present, and it has to grow. People are going to expect it.
Yeah. It was,
So
the way it was explained to me by I guess they had on recently who was talking about mobile service and, customer experience today. Customers are not comparing their dealership service experience with their past automotive service experience at a quick lube
yeah,
or an independent garage. They're comparing their automotive service experience with their other consumer experiences, whether that be, ordering food for delivery
yeah.
or ordering something on Amazon and having to show up at your house this afternoon. They're looking for that experience that is as frictionless as possible and lowers their overall transaction costs. And I'm not just talking the cost of the service, but the cost of getting to the dealership and the cost of waiting for your
Well, I
vehicle and
mean,
that
there's
type
an
of thing.
opportunity cost to your time, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And if you, and also they can come to your dealership and 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 fix your car. I mean, they can come to your workplace and fix your car. I
Right.
talked to a dealer on the East Coast, and they've got this huge business going to people's place of work. I mean, they have to clear it with the employer, but once they can do that, they can go to people's place of work and work, and provide mobile service while the car is just sitting there. And something else we haven't talked about that mobile service is perfect for is fleet business, right? It gives dealers a real way to grow their fleet business. And that can be a hugely successful business for some dealers. So, fleets love mobile repair because, if their cars aren't on the road, they're losing money. So that's, I think, something else that dealers should think about with mobile is you can get into servicing fleets really effectively that way.
Right. Absolutely. Let's go back to the mobile, or excuse me, the technician shortage question and kind of put a bow on that. That's obviously a topic of conversation that is on virtually every dealership owner, manager's top of mind. Based on your experience and the reporting that you've done, Alicia, what do you see any positive trends or hope for solving this issue in the near term or even the long term?
Trends. Getting more women in. That's,
Yeah,
and it's, um, I think people need to market the career to women more than they do. I, I think trends, I don't know about trends, but clearly they need to, dealerships, dealer associations, OEs, everyone needs to start putting this in front of kids as early as high school as a career opportunity, right? Because kids coming out of high school don't necessarily, not everybody needs to go to college, right? And they don't even necessarily need to go to trade schools, right? Those can be expensive. I mean, I did those stories on, in New Jersey where the New Jersey, the Dealers Association there is working with the state to create a training program that doesn't, it's free and it doesn't require the students to go to some trade school and incur a lot of bills, right? And I say students rather than these young people because it's actually, the program is targeting people who just need a job. So, they have people coming from all different backgrounds. I interviewed one young woman who was in it who had like bounced around, but she'd been like a baker previously, and now she's a service tech. So I think that making that putting this in front of people is really, it's happening more. But again, since I talk to people who have already done that, it seems to me like it may be more common than it actually is, right? So they really need to get the word out. And of course, I'm sure you've talked to plenty of people who've said, oh, the dealership, I mean, you can't use the term grease monkey anymore. Psst, no, but no, but even in general, the job has changed, right?
for sure.
But that doesn't mean you're still lifting up big tires and stuff like that, right? You might
Hmm.
be getting dirty, but it's a much more high tech job than it used to be.
For sure.
So I think that what needs to happen, what's happening at least in increments nationwide, is just to get the word out about this job opportunity and recruit more people, and then get them to recruit as well, right? Take them out, have them speak at high schools or community colleges. Just because when you see someone who's actually doing the job, I think that's more effective than, in journalism. I remember long ago when I worked for Business Week, and they said, "Show me, don't tell me," right? And so if you have a tech who came through one of these programs, talking to people who could go through this program, I think that's more effective than just giving them information on the program,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Couldn't agree with you more. Yep. I think that's where those part-time summer jobs and that type of thing, where you're in the environment and seeing people working and doing jobs that may interest you in the future, allows you to get a better feel for it, and it's a lot less theoretical. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think also it creates, going back to the mobile service thing, it does create, I think, opportunities there, because those are almost like HVAC technician jobs where you're customer facing, and you have to do the work as well, and that requires a different skill
Yeah,
set.
it's a different skill set. That's like
Right.
a whole separate little career path that could be put
Right.
in front of people.
Right.
So,
And not to mention the fact that the where college tuition is going, if someone is on the fence about whether or not it makes sense, or they have the opportunity to go to
yeah,
college or not, this is a great opportunity to get into an industry in a position that has a high demand for it and can make a
yeah.
very good living.
I know you're always going to be able to find a job if you're a
Yeah.
service tech.
Yep.
That's not going to be an issue. You know what?
Right.
You mentioned something a little earlier. We were talking about, I guess, convenience, mobile service. Anyway, and you mentioned, oh, well, you want to. It was something that maybe the chains and the independent repair facilities couldn't offer.
Hmm.
But we were talking a little bit about this. I'm working on a story right now for Automotive News about the latest Decker Carlisle study, which shows. I mean, everybody knows this, but this kind of drew from more data sources that dealers continue to lose business to chains and independent repair facilities. And while as a story I worked on last year, although I think it just came out, Nate Chernico said from Ducker Carlisle said, "Oh, chains are who they. I mean, I'm sorry. They said independent repair facilities. Keep an eye on them." This study shows that chains are actually gaining market share faster. Right. So here's something. The share of customers who identified chains as their primary service provider climbed from 20% to 42% from 2020 to 2025, while dealer market share declined from 54% to 36%. And and the primary driver there is price, right? So dealers need to show that, well, A, maybe they need to drop their prices, but B, they're going to have to provide something that makes people want to come to them, right? Over the chains, which are convenient because they're everywhere. So I guess the one of the positive things for dealers in this most recent study is that they scored higher and getting it right the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So once they do it right the first time, but they're kind of losing, especially younger customers, because they're more price sensitive.
Hmm.
So that's something dealers are really going to have to start paying attention to.
Yeah.
Right? You need to retain people. You need to get them in when they're young, and then you need to retain them throughout the life cycle. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's it, it's they're
Well,
going to have to be thinking about that.
yeah. Well, we'll look forward to reading your upcoming reporting about that, and I'd like to check out that report as well. It sounds interesting. As we close up our time together, I would be remiss unless I asked you about China, because you spent a large amount of your time living in, from what I understand, as well as reporting on the Chinese automotive market. And I'm curious, what are you seeing in China that U.S. dealers perhaps should be paying attention to or can learn from their Chinese counterparts?
Yeah, well, I did live in China for 14 years. I was there as a student. I'll date myself by say this. I was there as a student in 84 and then 91 through 93. And I worked there as a business journalist from 1996 to 2008. And I worked for Automotive News there I think I started working for them in like '01. Anyway, I and so let me a caveat to what I'm about to say is that I left China in '08 and I went back every year, a couple of times a year through 2000 and so 2019, right before COVID. But I did some big reports for Ward's Intelligence, but the automotive industry there has changed completely since I was last there, right? And I really want to try to get back to the auto show, Auto China, next year. If anybody want to pay for me to go cover it for me, but yeah, because it's changed completely, right? The types of car people are driving. I didn't cover dealers as much there. And interestingly, but the franchise dealer system in China is very similar to what you see here. I mean, if you go to a Ford dealership in China, it's going to look like the Ford dealership here in many ways. But I think that what I do know is that what's changed in China is what consumers want, right? And the kind of car they want. And everybody's seen this. And, the cars now are basically smartphones on wheels, right? And now, like, more than 50% are electric. Although that includes plug-in hybrid, hydrogen electric, and battery electric when you talk about new energy vehicles in China. But I think that from a dealer standpoint, I think people want the same things in China that they want here, right? They want convenience. And in China, they're even more used to convenience because everybody uses WeChat to do everything on their phone, right? One app to rule them all. You can do everything on your phone in China, and I'm sure that you can have people come repair your car in China. I mean, I just think that again, I think that points to technology, how technology is evolving, and you know, dealers here may think Chinese cars aren't going to get here because they're, the well, current and past administration are putting huge tariffs on them, but they're going to get here, right? I mean, let's face it, they're going to get here. And that is going to just mean that you're going to have to embrace that technology even more as a dealer, right? I mean, not just on the cars, but in your communication and everything.
Yep.
So I think that kind of brings us full circle, right? I think communication is going to be the key. And I'm sorry because I haven't covered the dealerships there as much, and I haven't even sadly been there, although I read about it. Of course, I talk to my friends, I cover it, and, I watch it. I mean, yeah, but I think that China's automotive industry has just already moved like way ahead, right? I mean, by keeping them out, we're basically hurting our own automotive industry because, we're not an island. Our US automakers have to compete in a global industry. And Europe, even Europe, you're going to need electric technology, right? So I'll be interested to see Volkswagen. They've got they're coming out with a bunch of electric vehicles now to try to kind of regain their mojo. So I'm going to be really interested to see if that works. Seriously, for the years I covered China, you don't know how many times I covered in China for China some, R&D or R&E center opening with a foreign auto brand. And they're saying the same thing now. But you know what? Volkswagen has been there a long time. They're almost a Chinese brand. They've been there so long, right? The Lao Santana, the old Santana used to be everywhere. So I think I'm going to be really interested to watch Volkswagen's launch of these vehicles. They've been there so long, if they can't do it, I don't know who can.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we've come full circle on a communication piece. I think that's a great place to wrap up. And speaking of communication, if any of our listeners would like to get a hold of you, or if there's any of our listeners who want to sponsor a trip to you for reporting in China, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, I have only one phone number, and I'll go ahead and give it to
email
people,
or LinkedIn.
Let's just do email, or you could text me. But yeah, when I moved back from China, I was like, do I need a fixed line? I moved back in 09, and I was like, no, I don't need a fixed line. So now when people say,
I would
is this
suggest
the best number? When I give them my mobile, I say, it's the only number.
Yeah. My recommendation to you is just give
an email. Okay,
address.
I'm going to give you my Gmail. Because Yahoo is annoying, but I keep it because I use it in China when I'm there. It's Alicia W62, and that's ALYSHAW62, and that's all lowercase, all one word, at gmail.com.
Okay, super. And we'll put that information in our show notes as well. Alicia, thanks very much for being a guest on the podcast today. We look forward to your continued reporting on the industry.
Thanks for talking with me, Bill.
My pleasure. Thanks for being with us. You've been listening to Retention Roadmap, Navigating Service Success for New Car Dealerships. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.